In a statement after the Orlando shooting, Hillary Clinton said, quote, "We need to redouble our efforts to defend our country from threats at home and abroad." She also said weapons of war have no place on our streets. The presumptive Democratic presidential nominee joins us now on the telephone. Secretary Clinton, thank you for coming this morning, morning in which the world is mourning about what happened here in Orlando, simply a block and a half from here, where 49 and the gunmen lost their lives. You have said we have to redouble our efforts. What does that mean, and how do we do it, and what is the urgency?
Well, Charlie, first of all, I want to extend my condolences to everyone who lost a loved one, and I also am thinking about those who are in critical condition still in the hospital. And even as we figure out more about what happened, we've got to defend our country from these so-called lone wolves and work with our allies to dismantle the global networks that fuel this kind of radicalization. It is a complex challenge, but I am absolutely convinced we're up to it. We have the resources, the relationships, the experience to get it done. But I think this is a moment for statesmanship, not partisanship. We should be coming together. We should be, trying to figure out the best way forward. I have said that we've got to go after this issue of self-radicalization. I would set up a team exclusively dedicated to detecting and preventing lone wolf attacks. And that does mean more resources. It does mean, making sure we're integrating all the information from every law enforcement agency and strengthening our communication. And we're going to have to work even more closely with our tech companies to prevent online radicalization while we take the fight to ISIS to defeat them in Syria and Iraq.
It is troubling that in this particular case, this man was on the radar, had been interrogated twice by the FBI. And how do we make sure there is the capacity and the tools to do something, and the laws with respect to respecting the Constitution and at the same time recognizing where danger is?
Well, that's absolutely right. This can all look obvious in hindsight. I'm not going to rush to judgment on the decisions made by career law enforcement professionals who get up every day trying to defend our nation. We have to wait to see what the investigation bears out. And if we do find there are things we can improve, we should. I think it's really important, though, the point that you made in your question, Charlie. Whatever resources, whatever manpower, whatever technological abilities are needed, we have got to provide them. This is a different threat, a different kind of challenge that we face. And I want us to be sure that we're really focused on providing everything that can make a difference. I mean, we may find out that this was a threat from this man or information about him that was followed up on, but there's a lot of other threats on the radar screen that have to be followed up. What more can we do? How can we have a better database where all of this is in there? And I go back to saying the Congress needs to pass the provision that prevents people who are on the no-fly list from buying guns in America. And we need to make sure that people who come across the attention of our law enforcement are on that list. So there's just a lot that we are, going to have to focus on. And I want to be sure we're doing everything humanly possible to equip and support law enforcement in meeting this threat.
The people, Secretary Clinton, who are gripped with pain, we saw some of them on the streets this morning. They don't really care whether it's a hate crime, a terrorist crime, a mental health issue. I'm wondering what your thoughts are for the people of Orlando today. Yesterday, President Obama took to the airwaves again, becoming consoler-in-chief. And people keep saying, we have heard this words. We have been in this situation too many times before, and nothing seems to change. What in the world is it going to take?
Well, I think it's going to take everything we were just discussing about upping our efforts and having a even more intense focus on terrorist threats. But it's also going to take common sense gun safety laws. We don't know all the details, but what we're hearing is that, this gunman used a military-style weapon to shoot down all of these people. They are using guns, as they did in San Bernardino, as the shooter did in Orlando. We've got to make it harder for them to do that, and we've got to keep weapons of war off our streets, like the one used in Orlando, as well as blocking suspected terrorists from buying guns. This man, bought those guns legally. He was even a security officer, it's reported, who had access to guns. And, if you're too dangerous to fly in a plane, you're too dangerous to buy a gun. If you're brought to the attention of law enforcement because of your comments about supporting violent terrorism, maybe that should also go in a database. We've got to look at all of this. This is not an ordinary time, and we need to act with a great deal of urgency in order to protect the people who have every reason to wonder why. Why is this happening? Why is this kind of hatred being put into action through these weapons? So we've got to have a very clear mission here that we address on both the terrorist side and the gun side.
Yes,
Secretary
thank you very
Clinton,
much,
thank you very much.
Secretary Clinton. It shows again much more work to be done. Thank you, Secretary, for your time this morning.